There we go. All right. So, Giovanna, it's so good to be with you to talk
Mm.
about our what we've got planned in Italy coming up in February of 2026. And this purpose of this conversation is to talk about that, but also more generally, um, mediate your life and your connection with it. And so, for people interested in all of that, we're going to have a conversation. So, thank you for being here.
Yes.
And so you want to start with this question of me, and then we'll kind of go from there with certain different questions and topics we're planning to cover.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm grateful for this time together. It's really an honor for us to have you in Italy next February.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we are celebrating a very emotional for us step that are the 10th anniversary of this program in Italy. So thank you for being here. And yes, so one of the first questions that I have for you is connected to the moment that you met Marshall Rosenberg. I would like to know how this impact your life. If you can say something exactly about that moment, if you remember. Um, in some way, I think that when you meet such kind of particular personality, something is very mark your memory in some way. So I would like to start from here.
Yes, it's a very vivid memory in my mind. It was absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. At the Before I met him, I was on a search. I was really searching for what I wanted to do with my life, and I really was starting to worry that I wasn't going to find it. Um, I was I had been studying psychology, clinical psychology. I thought I would be a psychologist. And then I realized, that isn't quite right. And then I was looking, so I left that path and I was looking at mediation, like conflict. And I'd use my psychology background to help people with conflicts, right? And then, but I didn't like any of the approaches to mediation that I was finding. It just
Mm,
didn't didn't do anything for me. And I was thinking, oh my God, this isn't going to work. And I was a few other areas I thought, but I was really starting to go, oh, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. Where am I going? And then I'm at this mediation conference, and
mm,
the keynote speaker turned out to be Marshall. And I didn't even know there was a keynote, talk to this particular workshop. And then he gets up there and he starts talking and has his puppets, and he has the drawings he does of these people connecting to each other's hearts. And it probably didn't take more than a minute before, in my memory it's almost like it was like immediate, like the moment he started speaking, but it probably took a few, a minute or more. But my memory is just like the room, time stopped like that. That's like in that again in kind of my mind, that my jaw just dropped open, and it was just like, I can't believe that I'm hearing and seeing this. That is absolutely what I'm looking for. Like, this is it. This is the thing that I've um looking back, like was looking for a long time.
mm,
Um and yeah, from that moment, I just absolutely, when you just know something all the way through, like
mm,
every single part of your body, your every cell in your body just kind of knows like something is is true. Like, and that felt like the truth of this is my path, this is my way. And it has been. That was over 25 years ago. That was in 1998 that I first saw him. And then right after, uh, at the end of that conference, or actually right after he was done talking, I went out to the hallway and I asked the person. There was a table there of nonviolent communication, table, and behind that was a fellow trainer that you may know, Sylvia Haskvitz. And I asked her, I said, what's the next thing that's happening with him? And it was a 10-day international intensive training down in Southern California. So I live in Northern California and the San Francisco area, and it was down in the South. And I just about a month later, and I said, okay,
Mm.
I'm doing it. And I just dove in,
Okay.
to a 10-day training, which happened to be a very
Mm.
wild NVC training with lots of intensity and drama and all kinds of things. But it was amazing. And so that was the start for me of NVC. And I had the tremendous gift of being able to work closely with Marshall. He would travel all over the world, and he would come to the Northern California Bay Area twice a year. And there was a team of NVC trainers in the area that would organize for him coming twice a year.
Mm.
So I got plugged into the local NVC community after this 10-day training. And then because of that, I got to get closer and closer to Marshall, and he saw something in me that he liked, and we really connected. And then he asked me to be a trainer, and then he invited me to more of those 10-day trainings all over the world for as long as he was doing them. I got to go to a lot of those with him and spend a lot of time with him, and we became close. So that's how my NVC
Mm.
path began. And then in 2002, I started doing this work that now is called Mediate Your Life with this wonderful friend and colleague, Ike Lassiter. And we started developing this focus on NVC and mediating conflict with NVC, which was interesting, kind of circling back to where I met Marshall at a mediation conference. And
Mm.
this impulse to focus on resolving conflict in the world. And then now with NVC and learning how Marshall did that, how he talked about that, how he learned for himself, how he mediated conflict with NVC. So we learned that from him, and then we started doing training on that NVC mediation, and then it grew from there. It just grew and grew and
Okay.
grew into what it is now. But I'll stop there just so
Yeah.
kind of go back to you.
Yeah. There are two things that are touching me more. That one is connected to this change of the perception of time that you experienced when you were in this conference. And in some way, there is something that is connected to the dimension of nonviolence. In my experience, there is this change of the perception of time.
Mm.
And so, yes, I would like also to offer you this as a point of reflection, if this is so.
Mm.
Sometimes, Matrix, the film where there is
Yes.
Neo, the protagonist of the film, that has this double possibility, to have the movement of the scene around him that goes in the clock time, the
Mm.
time that, yeah, the reality has. And at the same time, he's able to slow down these bullets that are arriving. So in the film is the first time that in the cinematography, they do this bullet effect is called, with this double time at the same moment. And
Mm.
I'm wondering now that I'm talking with you, if Marshall in that moment give this possibility to experience this differentiation of timing. And
Mm.
another thing that I'm thinking is, that it is the fact that when you start with NVC was particularly connected with mediation. And this is not my experience. I met NVC before having this passion for conflicts. And what I saw is that in some way there are some skills that require to bring NVC in a microclimate, the conflict that is very fast and very intense. So it's like not like to speak in a way that could create more connection as a normal conversation. I mean, where people are, just talking to each other. The conflict asks for this sense of being something is more fast, something is happening and needs more different rhythm with the connection. So I want just to put in the center these two reflections about time.
Wow, Giovanna, I love your question. Oh my goodness. And the Matrix movie, yeah, is. I love that movie for all these kind of elements like you're pointing to, right? Um, this deep kind of philosophical, spiritual insights of the movie. And so, yeah, and so I love the question of how that perception of time relates to that moment meeting Marshall, but also just
Yeah.
dealing with conflict, like when conflict becomes really stuck and unresolved, or it's seemingly unresolvable, how time relates to that, or what kind of working with time, how time relates to resolving conflict. I love the question so much. Uh, so for the first part of the question, yeah, I would say that if there's any, I just like how you pointed to that. Think if I can add to it. Well, the thoughts I've had more recently myself about in physics, they're talking about space time and as the fabric of reality, and how the present moment is being able to be aware of the present moment and really be in the present moment is where like the normal flow of time alters, right? Alters in really being more and more deeply in the present moment. So and that's the the key to meditation, to mindfulness, uh and kind of spirituality in general seems to keep revolving around that kind of core practice, really, of the present moment. Eckhart Tolle developed a 30-year career now, just basically riffing off of the power of now. So with Marshall in that moment, yeah, he the way he talked about conflict, about connection, human connection, about the language that connects us and that gets us into our heart to want to give and receive. Just the way he spoke. Yeah, it wasn't just him talking about that. It was how it was his being, it was his something beyond the words. And so maybe it was his, like Neo, in the Matrix, some way that he, especially when he was in front of an audience, that he could go into that space-time present moment, um, not just within himself, but somehow the whole room could experience that shift in time. And I haven't really thought about it in those terms and now until your question, but he would often have that effect on an audience where the whole room seemed to be go into a different kind of experience of reality. And I never thought of it in terms of, time or space time and this present moment, the power of the present moment. Um, but I think that was what I first tasted in him, even beyond, like he had an amazing way of talking about
Yeah.
the work, right? But there was something else about him that just radiated something, that just an aura that filled the room. And I bet it was something that at least what you're asking about is connected to. So anyways, I love that. Um, and I definitely felt and experienced whatever that was, the bullet slowing down. I definitely felt like everything slowed down to just, um, yeah, that experience. Um, and then I think, yeah, with conflict, right?
Mm.
That is my experience too. This if we don't slow down, make space, and come more into the present moment, which and Marshall often emphasized that in the practice of NVC is about really so much being able to keep coming into the present moment. What's alive now? The aliveness of what's alive in the present moment, and in conflict to resolve,
Mm.
right? To slow down space time so that people can get out of the conditioning and the patterns and the habits that are creating the thinking and the reacting that's creating the conflict. So I just really enjoy how you put all that
Mm.
together in your question. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking that also your implementation or your integration with mindfulness work was maybe something that was necessary for you in the Mediate Your Life program. So, where was this intuition for you to integrate mindfulness with the work on conflict?
Yeah. I don't have a specific, like a memory of us, like when I met Marshall. There's nothing that specific about it. When I, before I met Marshall, ever since from when I even entered into college, university, I really, I think it was always latent in me when I was young, but it really um, came forward in going into college of spiritual experience, spiritual, um, being on a spiritual journey, uh, and um, and starting to study the different um, religions and spiritual traditions, and so I was already, by the time I met Marshall, really deep into spiritual inquiry and practice. And then going into NBC and how spiritual Marshall was. Marshall was incredibly spiritual, and he grounded in this very practical language and ways of relating to communication and conflict. But yeah, he was just so that so resonated for me. And then when going starting to the Mediate Your Life work and working with the three chairs. So that at some point pretty early on, I don't remember when, but it really started, it became clear that the symbolism of the three perspectives of mediation, the two sides that are in conflict, and the third side of the mediator that is holding a different perspective, a different way of being, kind of holding that slowing down
Mhm.
of space time. Um, that Yeah, I can't remember exactly when. It was probably kind of gradual, but it early on, it started to get clear and clearer to me. It wasn't just about one person mediating between two people and helping them have a conversation, you know, helping them communicate better. It was that was a trinity, you know, that
Mm.
was the holy sacred trinity of thousands of years of spirituality that reference the triangle and the number three and all the symbolism of that. And so um and this association between spirituality and mindfulness. So particularly in Buddhism, right? But in others as well, there's usually this understanding of the importance of meditation, even in Christianity, uh, which doesn't emphasize that so much, but in the mystical practices of Catholicism and Christianity, then that's there too. There's a kind of prayer. The way prayer is done is very contemplative and meditative, and it's all about meditation in the mystical side of any religion. So I think I just was already so aware of that and practicing meditation and drawn to it, and then it just kind of it really clicked for me that, oh, if we're going to deal with conflict that can be so difficult, you need this way of connecting to the deeper realities through meditation, through mindfulness, and how to bring that into the practice of mediating. So how meditation can be part of mediation, and it just and then this and that what the third chair represented, the capacity in all of us to do that. So not just a third person between two others, but how that third chair is a dimension of all of us, is a kind of the mindfulness that when we're in a mindful present moment, more expansive awareness, consciousness, that's the third chair of mediation. And that started to come to me pretty early on. And then it just kept expanding and deepening as we developed the training over time.
Yeah. Yes. And I was thinking that sometimes in my experience, when people heard the word mediation, thinks that this is a profession. Actually, in Italy, we have an association of mediators. So we can't use really this name as a professional if we don't are, in a certain group of authorized people to use this name. So sometimes when people saw the possibility to study the third position in a conflict, connect immediately the fact that is a professional way of being or a professional things to do for other people. What I appreciate a lot about this program was that for me was amazing, the discovering how to apply this model of this three part. So the two part of in conflict, and this part that can hold a different space in myself also when I have conflict in me, or when I have issues with my daughter or the partner or my family. So yeah, if you can say something about this, I think that could support people to understand the value of this training, and the fact that are not connected only to yes, a professional life. And I know that most of the people that normally arrive in the training, often they work professionally with conflict. So directly as mediators or lawyers, or also not so directly like teachers when they are in school. But in my experience, there are lots of people that are, very heterogeneous. I had in these 10 years priests, nuns, and leaders, and students, and parents, and people that was going through separation or divorce, and so also in situation of pain. And they were looking for a space of a space where to try and test their way to respond to conflict in a more constructive way.
Yeah. Right. So that this approach is not just for professional mediators. That's in the training. It started off Ike and I calling it NVC mediation, and then as we kept seeing these deeper and deeper and wider applications, we started calling it Mediate Your Life. How you can mediate all aspects of your life, from the inner mediating within ourself, all the different ways we can mediate inside, and how the inside relates to the outside of us, and as well as being able to support other people in all kinds of ways, not in necessarily just a formal professional mediator role, but as you said, as a teacher, as a manager, as a parent mediating between children, right? Anytime there's a conflict, we can try to find the third chair that I like to call the third side, the third chair, the mediator perspective, that is in the work of internal family systems, which is a trauma healing work. It's called the self that can bring healing to the parts of our internal family system. We can find that self of higher awareness and love and compassion that can bring that healing to all our inner parts. And I see this model is very much the same, really, and just extending it to conflict and maybe between the parts of one person or the parts of ourself and then the
Yeah.
parts of another person. And so I like to think it's the three chairs are holographic. So they start within the three perspectives within ourself, and then it can be between ourself and another and others, and then helping other people who are in conflict. But at these different levels, there's these always these the two sides of the conflict, the duality, the polarity that is just inherent in life, and then the third side that is the integration, the holistic um, ability to integrate into wholeness
Yeah.
and hold a perspective of
Mm.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a curiosity that is connected to the trauma, because I know you as a uh, trained as a psychologist, and my question is connected to the differentiation or the difference that there is between a work that in a professional setting, one try to heal some trauma from the past, and the fact that in the third chairs, so in a setting that is totally different, with often with partner of practice, so there is no kind of professional psychologist that can support that. But in any case, my experience is that in the conflict arise some part of us that are asking for some kind of care.
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you is, how is possible to have care about uh, traumas that arise during this kind of training in a setting that is different from the healing setting of a professional's
Mm-hmm.
intervention?
Yeah. Yeah. I think about that a lot, and people ask about that a lot because this approach can be so therapeutic and healing. Then what's the line between this and therapy and trauma work, right? And that's its own specialization of training, of knowledge, right? And so the way I keep it, the distinction clear, or try to, because there is overlap. And the overlap being that when we're addressing conflict, it can bring up those deeper emotional
Yeah.
pains and hurts. And, there's a whole like spectrum, right? And all the way to what really the trauma that we might carry. And that comes up in conflict. That's one of the things that makes conflict so difficult to resolve sometimes or often is the hurt, the pain, the trauma that we carry that's getting activated in the conflict, right? So I think we need to know how to deal with that in a conflict situation, because it's so goes with that territory getting triggered, activated, and yet that it's not therapy, it's not trauma work, right? It's the way I keep it's about resolving a specific conflict in the world. Even if we're working on it internally, it's still about something in our life, in the world, that is in conflict. And we're looking to resolve that conflict in a practical way. And that helps keeping me, um, whether I'm, in my own life or I'm helping other people in the role of a mediator or coach, conflict coach, that I'm looking for where's the conflict in the world that they're dealing with, and that the
Mm.
focus is on coming to practical resolution. And because this approach brings together the components of NVC observation, the language of NVC, the observation, feeling, need, request language, and those relationships of language, and this three chair model and mindfulness, um, and then and then for me the trauma healing is the third chair can bring a warmth, a loving kindness of care, and that whatever comes up in a conflict, internally for people in the conflict and between each other, that some of those parts are protecting us from pain, and some of those parts in us carry pain. And that's just part of that's who's in the chairs, right? This is these parts in pain, or these parts that are protecting us from pain. And we don't, and for me, trauma work and therapy is about trying to heal that, trying to like focus on the healing of the wounds that we carry, and basically, yeah, getting to the wounds and healing the wounds we carry. Whereas for me, that's not the goal or the focus of this approach. The focus is to resolve a conflict. Yeah. Now, and in resolving the conflict, these different parts of hurt and pain can come up. And then because of the language of NVC, the mindfulness of NVC that includes a loving kindness meditation, so to speak, of that part, that way we can relate to difficulty and to differences, that it's healing. It is healing to bring that resonant, attuned nervous system from the third chair, that when we bring that to whatever parts are arising in the two chairs, it's healing. It's healing for those parts of us, right? So that just kind of happens along the way. But to keep the focus on getting to agreements that are mutually good for both sides, and somehow resolve something in the world. But in the process, there's transformation, there's healing, there's all these things that can happen. But that for me keeps it distinct. It's not about directly trying to heal the pain in people. And so therefore we're not trying to be therapists and do that. It's just, we're trying to, in my approach, right, I'm trying to help resolve this conflict, right? So and the communication that's related to that. So that's how I try to keep it clear. And that for me seems to kind of steer around these pitfalls of getting too caught in trying to be a therapist, or be healing all this conflict, this pain. To no, that's what other areas of expertise and practice and knowledge, right? This is this one. This is about communication as it relates to resolving conflict. So that's how I do it. And is that similar for you? How you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the experience that you have as a psychologist. My arrival to NVC was connected to actually a conflict that I had in that period of life. But when I was 26, I worked in a private organization, and I remember that there was this boss, this leader, that used a communication, the language, in a way that was very fascinating to me. It seems that there was a very strong relationship between the level of power that this person had in this organization and the way that he used the language. So, so one day he used some terms that for me was not, possible to to cooperate with. So in that night, I decided just to leave the company, and I decided that my research was connected to the relationship between language and conflict and the use of power. And so I met an nonviolent communication after 15 years, that there was this interest for me for the topic of conflict. And in particularly when I meet Mediate Your Life, for me was an insight how much the speedness of and the intensity of the emotions present in the conflict needs to really slow down. and at the same time to have the ability to attune on the intensity of the language of the people that are around us. What, yeah, one of my discovery was exactly what you were saying, the fact that when I realized that when I have some kind of tensions with people around me, actually today they are something very special because I can see inner conflict in me.
Mm.
And so the fact that this program support me in using this three chairs model in the inner conflict and also in the interpersonal conflict was really an insight.
Mm.
Yeah, so I can see if I come back with my eyes, after 10 years ago, how much of my experience of learning in the conflict was connected also to have care about particularly part of me that were in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And to have this connection with this part of me support me also to recognize them when they are activated. Very often today, pretty much absolutely more than what I did 10 years ago, but I can recognize them, this part of me when they are activated. So this presence to the body, because,
Mm.
the mind often, I can realize that I'm in anger too late. And Mediate Your Life support me to have this sense of connection with the body, that there is a kind of anticipation of what the reality will be in just few seconds. And
Mm.
so this connection with myself, with the learning about how my nervous system respond to a certain situation, support me to know me better, to anticipate what I am doing just in few seconds. And so in that little part of time, it seems that I have more choice now. I have more choice in terms of which kind of reality I would like to create now, which kind of person I want to embody, which
Mm.
kind of value I would like to walk in
Mm.
the response that I'm giving to others.
Mm.
Um, and I was so enthusiastic when I arrived home from the first retreat of Mediate Your Life. And I remember that I just did the first retreat in Poland, in Varsavia. And when I come back in Italy, I said to the people that were working with me, I said, okay, so now we have to bring this in Italy.
Mm.
Absolutely. So I didn't finish all the retreat. It was just the first meeting, and already I was in love with the program. And one really beautiful things that happen here in Italy, and I hope that people that that they will come to join us in February, they can have this experience, what feel to be part of a community of people that grow together around the program. 10 years ago, some people that participate to the first edition decide to maintain their relationships in the practices of NVC, in the practices of Mediate Your Life program, and also to create like a circle of cooperation in the organization of the next editions. And so this group grows and growed a lot in the time. And now, we are maybe 15, 16 people, I don't remember. And they are so happy to learn. I mean, they are part of the program in the room. They support the new participants in the practice, and they are so open to receive feedback in their support so they can have a way to learn and to grow together. So it's a really, every Mediate Your Life that I did is a really a big space of learning for every one of us.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I remember well 10 years ago when Ike and I were there to bring Mediate Your Life to Italy, and and then to hear, what you have done with it since then is continues to be, every time I hear you talk about it, brings me so much joy. That and the kind of community that you've brought together, the way that, yeah, it sounds like it's such a powerful community, as well as the learning. Um, yeah, and to go and to be with this community for me is feels very special, incredibly
Yeah.
meaningful, and it relates to a movement I see myself now just spontaneously kind of growing in me, as wanting to bring together the different places in the world that have kind of taken this training and developed, kind of brought it, doing your own training in different parts of the world. So Ike and I would go to different places in the world and offer
Yeah.
Mediate Your Life training. And then some places really just continue to do that on their own, the Mediate Your Life. And you've done that, as you mentioned, Anya in Poland, even earlier, started doing that.
Yeah.
And in South Korea, they have done that, continue to do Mediate Your Life training there, and have done all kinds of wonderful things with mediation in different parts of the South Korean community society.
Yeah.
So yeah, this way that Mediate Your Life can be individual to each place and culture and its own way of developing, but that can also kind of bridge and be more connected, the different
Yes.
people that are
Yeah.
really
Absolutely.
committed and
Yeah.
kind of co-evolving it in different places, and we could have more international kind of
Yeah.
interconnectedness. Um and of course, nonviolent communication has that in a bigger way. All the people around the world, doing NVC in all kinds of different ways. But this is kind of a more specific focus of it with mediating conflict. And
Yeah.
but the idea there could be a international community that's more coherent, more connected, is a big dream of mine. That I find myself putting a lot of energy into right now. And going to Italy feels like a really important part of that. And just
Yeah.
reconnecting with you and all that you've been doing with this work, and how
Mm.
it relates to the other work that you're doing in the world, around
Yeah.
power and organizations, and kind of
Yeah.
transformation on that systemic level, which also to me is so it's so part of it, right? Whether it's internal or interpersonal, it's also systemic and cultural and societal. And we're seeing all the challenges more than ever at that systemic societal level.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love that you're doing all
Uh,
that, and that we get to connect more. Uh,
yes, and there
yeah.
is also something that it seems that reality anticipate your vision because was 2015 when Anya Mills from Poland arrived to Italy to support the starting of the program here. She was so, uh, yeah, so supportive and so generous with her learning. And then I just did the same with Spain. I went in Spain for 2 editions, and there is a kind of, I don't know if it's a depth of um, support. In some way, I received this support from Anya Mills, and I wanted to offer this support to another country. So I think that your vision of this international uh, intertwined between people that support each other in developing this uh, different perception of time in conflict is something that is going on already. Yeah. So we are waiting for you in Italy. We are so honored and glad that you are coming to visit us.
Yeah.
Uh, this will be 5 days of intense work together. Um, yeah, we have this particular setting, the idea to promote sharing in the morning in between people what really they would like to work on, because we will have in the room different level of also of understanding of NVC or experience with NVC. And yes, and so the possibility to have, to discuss together what we want to work on, and then in the afternoon, just leave the people the possibility to go deep in what they want. We have different trainers in the room, and at the same time, I know that most of the people come because you, me too, I would like to be with you in the room. So thank you for coming. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited, and I look forward to being with you in the room and the others that have been working with you. I realize I also just want to name a few other places that Mediate Your
Yeah.
Life is. Um, One other place that has historical like connection is Holland, and um, there's Christian Zant in Holland, who is I don't know if he's going to make it to Italy or not, but
Mm.
he's been a in Holland and in Europe doing a lot of MYL work, and then more recently in China and Taiwan, they've really gotten in the last uh, few years really interested in Mediate Your Life training as NVC is growing their interest in the Mediate Your Life work. So there's actually quite a number of places that can kind of all be part of this, and that I just hope to bring that to the Italy, this expansive kind of vision, as well as like what's happening there. And
Yeah.
lastly, what I would say, because one of the questions we talked about for this conversation was the big dream. So that's one dream, but there's an even bigger dream I want to name before as we come to a close of this conversation, which for me is about global health and well-being. So I've watched the development of the health and wellness movement to be uh, from like the food we eat and exercise and yoga and then meditation, how meditation is becoming more clearly part of uh, health and wellness and well-being. And then of course the relationship to the environment and the health of the ecosystems and biosphere and the water and the land and the air, and but then also to be part of our kind of global human understanding of health, and maybe a global health system or health awareness would be how we relate to conflict and how we can communicate empathically, and how we can resolve conflicts with this, slowing down the space
Yeah.
time and finding the third chair, and what that could kind of a more general kind of understanding in the world about these three perspectives of conflict, and how we can communicate empathically that NVC brings, and how that would be part of a sort of universal understanding of health and wellness and well-being for humanity. That this work in NVC could contribute to that happening,
Yeah.
for humanity, and how we understand health and the health
Yeah.
of humans, the health of the whole biosphere of life on our planet. And that's my biggest dream, that to contribute to that, um, being really that awareness of how what we're talking about here is part of health, as much as food and
Yeah.
um, exercise and
And
all the
rest.
aspects
Yes. Yeah.
of our health, right? This is part of being healthy, is how we relate to conflict and how we communicate with each other. And so
Yeah.
thanks for being part of
So,
this with me,
yes.
Giovanna, and all that
Thank you
you're
too.
doing in the
Yeah.
world to support those things. Wonderful to talk with you. Anything else you want to
Yeah.
say?
No, I'm happy to see you soon,
Mm,
and happy to create with people space for grow together.
yes, me too. I'm really looking forward to it. And I appreciate your questions and this conversation so much. So thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be seeing you soon. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.